You're listening to the Light Novel Podcast. Visit us online at lightnovelpodcast.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Light Novel Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Reki Kawahara's other popular light novel series, Accel World, and ponder why it is that it won the Dengeki Prize and yet is not the one that's famous. Who knows? Anyway, with me...
It's a rigged election anyway. It's rigged anyway, so...
with me tonight, I have Bio Gundam.
Time to accelerate.
I have Flies.
Yeah, hello.
And I have Mirage.
Hi, everyone.
Are you winning, Yuri?
All right. So, we've got a bit of news. I'll start with the really quick stuff first. Just a couple of light novels that are getting manga treatments and stuff such as that. First off, now we don't have this in English. However, SLASHDØG is actually a shared universe as High School DxD, which we are getting in English in October.
The guy from SLASHDØG actually shows up, and so does Varley and a bunch of other characters from mainland High School DxD.
And
apparently, the main character of SLASHDØG, his cousin is actually Akuno, so...
That means nothing to me.
If you wanted to do quick news, you shouldn't have mentioned High School DxD with Bio.
Well, you know.
For a while.
And don't worry, eventually we will do a podcast on High School DxD, obviously. And then Bio will just talk and we'll all sit down and have a drink and let him go. Anyway, so it's getting a manga adaptation. So seeing as how it's shared universe and apparently popular, we may one day see it in English. The Saint's magic power is omnipotent. This is a light novel that just came out from Seven Seas. They've just started publishing it in English. It is apparently getting a spin-off manga, which is titled The Saint's Magic Power is Omnipotent, Another Saint. So I'm thinking it might focus, because I know the whole story is there's two girls that are summoned as saints, and the light novel follows the one character. Maybe the manga follows the other one. That's my guess.
That'd be interesting.
It could be. Kuma 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 Bear. Anime has just started airing, and also, of course, we have a couple volumes now in English from Seven Seas on this one. It is getting a 4-koma slice of life manga spin-off called Kyo mo Kuma Kuma Biyori. Today is also a Kuma Kuma day. I like the whole series apparently is a big slice of life. I really don't understand what they need to do a slice of life manga spin-off on it, but whatever, it's fine.
There's not enough slice of life as it is.
And on top of that, this is probably, I guess, the biggest news of this non-licensed stuff news. Sword Art Online Progressive has been announced to be getting an anime. Wow, the whole room goes silent. I thought somebody was going to say something.
It's the SAO I've wanted. Finally.
But we don't deserve.
I pretty much stopped following SAO following the first half of Alicization.
Well, okay. Fair enough. But I mean, Progressive is all about Aincrad. So it's, you know, and it's new Reki Kawahara. It's like stuff that's Kawahara as a better writer stuff.
Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just a retcon of the original book.
It actually isn't. It fills in like gaps between the original story.
Like, admittedly, he has somewhat retconned the relationship between Kirito and Asuna in Progressive. But that seems to be about the only thing that's actually retconned. Like, everything else is just details we never knew about. Because the original one picks up, they're already on, what, the 30th floor or something like that? Like, he flashbacks for a little bit, but then he's like, and we're already halfway up, or, you know, like, it just, yeah. I mean, I really actually like the first one. I guess I haven't felt the urge to buy a bunch of them because he only puts out one like every 1 to 2 years. And I don't know. It's funny. What I find funny is that initially the series, when everybody was talking about it, they're like, oh, it's a retelling of the Aincrad arc, and it's going to be like the whole thing, like from the first floor all the way up to like the end of it, and blah blah blah. And like, dude has been working on this series for what, 10 years, and we're only on maybe the 8th floor or something like that. So now every time I see Progressive mentioned, they're like telling the tale of the earlier floors of the Aincrad arc. I'm like, we've given up. We're not retelling the whole thing anymore.
So basically, Progressive is not the right title.
It's not very progressive, no.
It progresses at a very, very slow pace.
Yeah, it progresses, but yeah, very slowly. Oh boy.
Sword Art Online glacial progression.
Yeah, but you know what's actually really funny, and I think it messes with people, is that the Aincrad arc of the anime actually used material from the first volume of Sword Art Online Progressive, like material that did not exist in the original light novels. So it's
Filler.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. Like, they Frankensteined the Aincrad arc in the anime out of the first book, then the
into a god unholy abomination.
and then then they involved 2 short story volumes, and then they brought in pieces of Progressive, all to build that whole. I always thought, like, it was funny until I got into light novels. Like, when I was watching the Sword Art anime, I was kind of like, damn it, why is this Aincrad arc like so all over the damn place? Like, it was just a hot mess at times, you're like, I don't like, there's all these weird jumps and random gaps of like time, and I was just like, I don't understand it. And then I got into light novels, and I'm like, oh, now I understand it.
But the problem is, the one thing I liked most about the original novel was the relationship between Kirito and Asuna. So, and that's the thing they threw out of the window.
Well, not in Progressive, though.
That's pretty much like the whole selling point of
Progressive actually has a way better relationship. Yeah. That's actually one of the things.
It's a more progressive relationship.
Well, that is about the only thing that is really progressive about Progressive. It doesn't move.
Yeah, she's on top this time.
Like, it doesn't move super fast, obviously. They're taking their time developing things. But yeah, like, one of the main selling points of Progressive was that even Kawahara himself was like, I want Kirito and Asuna to have an actual honest to God relationship, not what I kind of rushed in the original telling. So if you actually like that, then Progressive is kind of worth checking out. I just think it's kind of weird that they're doing it as an anime. It's obviously just a filler because they want Kawahara to do more Unital Ring volumes, which is the brand new arc that he just started like a year or two ago of the main Sword Art Online, and they just don't want to go 2 years without a Sword Art anime. That's all. So it's a money grab. I hate to say it. It is.
The milking just keeps on continuing.
Well, like, I know a lot of people were kind of hyped because a lot of people really like Progressive, and don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away from that, but I really do think that the whole point of it is just cash. It's just cash.
I just think it's not going to go anywhere. It's now how much? Many 12 volumes and
No, I think it's only got like 7 or 8.
Seven? Okay,
They've only completed the first 6 floors.
So it will never get to the end of Aincrad.
No, he won't.
Kawahara will die before that.
Well, Progressive's never not meant to reach that far. I'm pretty sure what I was told was that it's probably going to go farthest like floor 25, and then something's going to happen.
So what, it'll probably just go up until where the original Sword Art Online novel picked up?
That would be on floor 40, 48 or something like that. I think that would be volume 30 or 40 of Progressive, and if there's one every 2 years,
he'll just skip. He'll just be like, and then we were on floor 20.
Yeah.
What I was told is that he's trying to like make it so that Progressive can kind of fit into the narrative of the original Aincrad, and that around like floor 25 or so, like there's going to be some event that eventually has Kirito and Asuna split up, and then Kirito is going to eventually go to the Midnight Black Cats or whatever, and Asuna is going to go to the Knights of the Round Blood or whatever, and then it's meant to like be its own thing in between that part of the timeline.
Yeah, because like because the thing I've always wondered is how she actually got into that organization in the first place, and the same thing with Kirito as well, because they don't really even explain. Like maybe they do for Kirito, but they don't like fully go into the details of how they got into those respective guilds / organizations.
Yeah, well, they certainly don't with Asuna, that's for sure. So,
like, she's the second in command of this massive fucking guild. I mean,
yeah,
that's not like not anyone can just say they're that.
well, I mean, you know, it's early Kawahara, right? She's cute, she kicks ass, she can cook. She's got to be the second in command. Like, come on. Like, I mean, let's face it, early Kawahara, he was not exactly on his game when it came to building really complex female characters. So, but anyway, whatever, it's fine.
Neither
It'll
is
be
late
interesting to see.
Kawahara.
Well, he's better at it. He's not maybe as good as other authors, but he's better. At least he doesn't write. At least he doesn't make every villain a rapist. You know.
No, but didn't you hear when he said he wanted to write better female characters? People called him out as being infected by the Western SJW crowd. Apparently.
Yeah. Well, let's not even get into that. That was just a bunch of BS. That was just a bunch of clickbait. I mean, again, it got translated that Kawahara said that he wanted to write better female characters because once he got outside of Japan and broadened his horizons, he realized, you know, oh, my female characters are kind of paper thin. And he mentioned it as, and it was translated as him saying political correctness. But again, I don't even know whether that's, even if he said that.
I'm suspect on that translation, but like talking about like the female characters, I mean there are anime who do decent female characters, and I think Reki Kawahara is just like, oh fuck, I've been doing this wrong.
Well, I mean, Kawahara has said that a lot of the stuff that he's been criticized about with Sword Art Online, he himself criticizes because he realizes that it was very much a product of his limited reading and experience at the time, right? And so, I mean, it's not, yeah, I mean, we don't have to beat that bush anyway. We'll move on. You know, we could do a whole progressive podcast probably at some point. But tonight is not that night. Tonight belongs to a different Kawahara title. But first, there's a couple of other titles that are actually going to be coming out in English that I know we certainly cannot neglect to mention one of them because the fandom will come and burn us down. But we won't start with that one because, you know, that's how I like to play it. First off, this one's not necessarily a new license, but it is kind of news. So the Haruhi Suzumiya, arguably one of the very influential light novels of the early 2000s, is finally getting a brand new volume. It is being called The Intuition of Haruhi Suzumiya. It is going to be released. It's scheduled to release November 25th, 2020. It's been years since the last one. The new volume is actually a collection of 3 short stories. 2 of them have been previously published in magazines, and the third is going to be 100% original for this light novel release. The news is that Yen Press announced that they are going to be doing a digital publication of this book simultaneous with the Japanese release, which I think is a first that we've had. J Novel Club, I know, has come very close because they're very often on the hot heels of the Japanese releases. But I think this is the first time that we're actually seeing an English release and a Japanese release happening at the same time. They will be releasing a print edition, but they have not said when. But also on top of that, they are going to be re-releasing the original, like Haruhi Suzumiya light novels, are getting a brand new print edition under the Yen On imprint. And we're still not sure whether they're going to be like I'm guessing they will be the original Japanese covers, because obviously Yen On, that's what they do now. Back when Haruhi Suzumiya was first released, it was under, I think, Little Brown and Company, which was another Hachette imprint, and they did English exclusive covers, which, I mean, weren't horrible. They weren't as bad as the Spice and Wolf English covers, but I don't know. I'd still prefer them.
It's literally just random colors.
Yeah, they're just random colors, the title, and then some silhouettes. But the silhouettes are tiny. Like, it's mostly just the big chunk of color. So, But anyway, so that's the news with that one. So we're getting a brand new volume. It's going to be coming out, and yeah, simultaneous digital release, and then we're getting the whole series reprinted as a brand new print release under the Yen On imprint. So that's pretty cool. Next up, we will talk about a Seven Seas license. They have licensed a light novel and the accompanying manga adaptation called A Tale of the Secret Saint. Fia always dreamed of becoming a knight. Born into a family of knights, she's the least talented among them, but she still clutches to her hope and trains with everything she has. When the day comes for her to slay a small demon and prove her worth, she ends up face to face with a dragon instead. Talk about, not as advertised. A deadly injury makes her life flash before her eyes, and she suddenly remembers her former life when she was a powerful saint in a bygone era who defeated the Demon King. That life ended in pain because of who she was, making her fear ever becoming a saint again. Now that the magic from her previous life has been rekindled, she may become a more powerful knight than she ever dreamed, if only she can survive long enough. This one is set to release in October of 2021.
Oh, very early announcement.
Yeah, so don't get all hyped up for this one because it's a year away. Although to be fair, they will probably release it in ebook format sometime in like August or maybe earlier September. Probably in August. They usually do about 2 months in advance.
Yeah, but you're gonna be waiting a fucking long time. Like, there's no point in getting excited. Like, just give it some time.
Yeah, I know.
Hopefully, I remember it exists by then.
Now, Cross Infinite World has licensed a new one. Actually, Cross Infinite World has 4 licenses that they're going to be announcing. They're doing one a week. So this is the one for this week. It is Reset. The imprisoned princess dreams of another chance. Can magic change her future? Days before her marriage to the king of the neighboring Sunruta kingdom, Princess Annabelle of Najir is abruptly betrayed by her fiancé and thrown into prison with her magic knight under suspicion of being a spy. After being held captive for months and informed her kingdom is no more, Annabelle passes out and in a burst of destructive magic, only to awaken as her 12-year-old self 6 years before her political marriage. Armed with knowledge of the dark future to come, she now has another chance to bring about a new fate. This is the story of Princess Annabelle's second chance at life and her drive to stop the destruction of her kingdom. They are releasing this first book for January 14th, 2021. So about 3 months or so. Currently, now, this is one of Cross Infinite World often does licenses with the Japanese author directly. This is a Naru book. It is currently ongoing still. This volume that Cross Infinite World is releasing is about half of what is currently posted on Naru. So this is a series. So there will be more volumes to follow after this one.
Are you sure? It's Cross Infinite Worlds.
No, I've talked to them actually. I asked them right when they announced it. I said, "Is this just a one-off? Is it a series?" I mean, they are bringing out series, and actually, they did a hiring of a bunch of translators a couple months ago. They put out a call, and I've noticed that a few of their newer releases have new translators on them. Before Cross Infinite World was only the owner was doing all the translations, which I think is part of the reason that they had the slower release schedule. So it looks like they're trying to expand and speed up. They've actually announced quite a number of follow-up volumes to existing series that we thought would never get their follow-up volumes because, we hadn't heard anything. So it seems like Cross Infinite World is looking to kind of up their game. And I guess they've been doing well because, like I said, they've hired on more staff to help them do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they're focusing on infrastructure and, which is good. I actually like Cross Infinite Worlds. They make some interesting stuff.
Well, again, it's kind of interesting that they're kind of doing in English what the Japanese are doing, right? The Japanese, like the light novels scene there is so heavily the Japanese plucking these web novels and publishing them, and Cross Infinite World is doing the same thing, but they're skipping the whole going through the Japanese publishing side. They're just directly going to these authors, and then they're doing all the artwork, arranging the artwork, and everything else themselves. So it's, you know what, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, and their titles obviously have a very distinct like shojo flavor to a lot of them, which for a long time they were about the only company putting out shojo light novels in English. The other publishers have started jumping on board, but yeah, I mean, they definitely have a niche, and they've put out. You're right. They've put out some pretty cool titles and some different stuff.
I mean, I watched yeah, I think they were the ones who did Beast Blood. Like, I finished reading Beast Blood. Like, that was pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't.
I mean, there's aspects of it that I could kind of see like a mile away, but it was an interesting experience.
Interesting. All right. So we've got then two more books that were published by, well, are going to be published, have been announced by Yen Press. This was at the Crunchyroll online thing. First up, this one actually, I gotta say, there's the quote unquote big title that I know lots of people are jazzed about, but this one sounds really cool to me. So it's called Virgin Road. The lost ones are wanderers who come here from a distant world known as Japan. No one knows how or why they leave their homes. The only thing that is certain is that they bring disaster and calamity. The duty of exterminating them without remorse falls to Meno, a young executioner. When she meets Akari, it seems like just another job, until she discovers it's impossible to kill this girl. And when Meno begins to search for a way to defeat this immortality, Akari is more than happy to tag along. So begins a journey that will change Meno forever. And they're saying the series, they have not announced when it's going to come out here. It currently has 4 volumes out in Japan. It started in July of 2019. So, also, very interestingly enough, this was the first title to win the GA Bunko Grand Prize in 7 years. From what apparently I can see, the last title that actually won the grand prize of GA Bunko was Danmachi. So,
ooh.
So you can take that as you will, but that's not some bad pedigree right there.
I don't know. I've seen some show with some good pedigree and it turning out to be a fucking abomination, but who knows? This is definitely like I definitely am interested. I might check this out, like maybe give it like a volume.
Well, I do like the fact that, I mean, it's obviously playing with the whole isekai thing, but it's focusing a lot more on the citizens of the world that people come to, and B, the fact that, like, let's face it, in pretty much every isekai, the person coming from Japan, makes major changes to the world, brings like all sorts of destruction and everything else. Like, it's kind of a cool twist to see them be like, you're not a hero, you're a monster. I like when they play with the sort of the typical defaults of a particular
it's
genre.
something different. It's something different.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they announced that they have licensed Date Alive.
Yay!
Shido Itsuka has a problem. The world has been racked by massive quakes of an unknown source for years now, though life continues on. Then one day, Shido's calm life ends forever when, in the middle of a quake in his city, he meets a girl who's apparently a spirit and the cause of all the destruction. When a team arrives to eliminate the threat, Shido becomes embroiled in a war to protect these spirits by making them fall in love with him. This one is actually complete now in Japan. It has 22 volumes. It began in publication in Japan back in March of 2011. There's been 3 seasons of an anime. There is a
movie.
Yeah, there's a movie. There's a 4th season that I believe is actually based on the spin-off Date a Bullet, and that's in production. And there's also been like numerous video games, manga, and everything else. And funny enough, the only thing that we've ever had in English was the anime, and I think we actually got one of the video games.
The games.
Yeah. So this is the first time we're actually getting the light novels, and we've never gotten the manga. So go figure. Kind of weird.
It's funny. We got like the games and the anime first, but never the light novel.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
It is strange, but now we're getting the light novel. So there you go. And actually, this one, I'm trying to think, they like There's actually a release date, I think, for this one already. They were talking like it's supposed to come out, I think, in March, maybe. Might even be earlier than that. But it looks like this one they're looking to get out. So I don't think it's one of those. It's not like one of those ones that's like, yeah, we've licensed it, and we'll see you in a year. So we'll see. All right, so that's all the news that we're going to cover. The only, I guess, other little news that we've been seeing rumblings of, Mirage was talking about when we were setting up. It's what, Micro Magazine? Is that what?
Micro Magazincha.
Okay.
Name of the company.
All right. And so they have been talking online that 3 of their titles have been licensed for English release, but we do not know by who. We do not know when they will be announced. We can't even 100% confirm that it's true because, well, they haven't been announced by anybody. So, and we don't really, and it's not like you can just approach all the different publishers and say, hey, are you the ones who licensed this? For all we know, it's a new company. We don't know.
Well,
We'll see.
We'll find out. We'll find out once we have an interview with the owner.
Well, I mean,
and then mysteriously, me and said owner get along, and we end up playing Total War together.
It could be Tentai Books. I mean, I know Alex has said that they've got some announcements that they're working on. So who knows? Well, I don't know.
He did tell me he was working on some stuff, but I can't say what it is because.
Yeah. Well,
I was bribed. Imagine that.
And like Soul Press has been like, teasing that they have something to announce for like, I don't know how friggin' long now.
I don't think Alex has 3 titles at once. That would be a bit much for.
Oh no, I don't think it's all him. I don't think it's all his titles. I'm just saying maybe one of them is, but I don't know. I do know that Alex had talked about when we interviewed him. He talked about that he was probably going to stick with Overlap for his next couple of titles, so it's probably not him. I wonder if it's at least Soul Press for a couple, because they've been, like I said, they've been on Twitter like talking up the fact that they've got their print editions finally getting nailed down, and they're going to announce some licenses and stuff. And well, we'll see. I mean, honestly, I really do hope that they do well. It seems like they've gone through some really rocky times, so hopefully they are getting their house in order. All right, so that's all the news really to talk about. Next up, then we are going to be talking about Accel World. This, of course, also by Reki Kawahara, the one that we already talked plenty enough about in when talking about Sword Art Online Progressive. So it's kind of an interesting story with Accel World. So Accel World was entered into the 15th Dengeki Novel Prize in 2008 and won the grand prize, which is interesting because I believe this was the same competition that Kawahara entered the first volume of Sword Art Online in. And if I recall, he was disqualified because the book was too long. I'm pretty sure that's how the story goes. In any case, Accel World was actually his first published work. The first volume came out in February of 2009 under the Dengeki Bunko imprint. There's currently 25 volumes released. That's as of actually just this month, September of 2020, in Japan. And we're actually not that far behind. In English, Yenon just released the 22nd volume, I believe, actually just a couple days ago. So we're only 3 books behind, really. So we're not that far behind in the English side of things. Accel World is set in the future. It's set about 25 years after Sword Art Online. I'm trying to remember now the exact.
Roughly.
What? Yeah.
I think it's a bit more, but I'm not sure.
I thought it was like around 2046 or something like that. Like it was.
If I remember, I think if it was like between 20 to 30, because I remember in the anime they mentioned the Aincrad incident. And they said like, oh yeah, that thing like 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah. So it is set. So it is set 20 to 30 years, let's say roughly, after
2046. Yes.
Okay. Oh, look at me. I was actually right. 2046. Look at me. Okay. So it is set about 20 years or so after Sword Art Online occurred. Now, we will probably talk a little bit about the constant fan rumoring about whether these two universes are truly connected or whether it's just Kawahara borrowing bits and pieces from his works to make them work. But I don't know what.
I'm in the first camp, by the way.
Well, I've heard some rumors that make me think that Kawahara has made the decision that he's going to tie these two together, but
well, if the Eincrad incident is mentioned, then of course, then
because my memory is all fuzzy, but I remember when I watched the anime, they distinctly mentioned the Aincrad thing.
but they
now,
don't.
This was like when I was,
but they don't in the light novels. It's the same it's the same thing that apparently at the end of Alicization that just aired, the anime, there is a crest shown in it, which apparently has already appeared in Accel World. So there's ties that the anime has established as Easter eggs. But
even in the light novels, there's fucking Easter eggs. Like I read through I read through most of Alicization. Like I'm up to date, and like I'm reading this, and I'm just like, hey, that reminds me of that. That reminds me of this. This reminds me of this. Like it's like that meme about that guy with like the board up. He's doing like the face. Like if you could see, if I had a webcam on, you could see me do the thing. But he's doing the fingers it's all like. It's too much. It's so much of a it's not a coincidence that the shit there's too many like coincidences.
Well, admittedly, now Kawahara himself has gone on record. Now, this was a couple years ago, so obviously things could change, or as I said, there are rumors that things have changed, but they're in later volumes of both Accel World and Sword Art, so I don't want to spoil anything. However, supposedly it looks like Kawahara has had a change of heart, but I don't know. Anyway, Kawahara years ago said that no, a world and Sword Art are not in the same universe. However, he has borrowed and weighed very heavily. What he basically said was he thought that the technology that he was doing in Sword Art, including the whole STL Fluctlight things in Alicization, he saw that as being something that would be a precursor to the neural links that are seen in Accel World. And so that was kind of how he was like, I kind of decided to use the same technology in both because I basically had created a backstory for how that technology could evolve, but that the actual stories themselves were not connected.
Well, I mean, they're definitely connected in some way, but I mean, I think what most people mean by connected is just like where is Kirito like involved? Is Asuna involved? Is Klein involved? Is Agil? Like, are they directly involved in Accel World? I'm going to say yes.
Well, okay. We're probably getting way ahead of ourselves. So let's talk a little bit first about what the damn series is about.
That's a good starting point.
It's probably a good starting point. So basically in 2046, these devices called neural linkers are essentially as cell phones are today. And they're like a multi-function tool. Like it's basically replacing everything, like your computer, your cell phone, and essentially it creates immersive digital worlds and also digital environments where you can do all the things that you would typically do with, say, a cell phone, a computer, and so forth. Obviously, it has a virtual reality component to it, much like the headsets from Sword Art Online, where one becomes completely immersed in the virtual world as if they are actually living in it. They actually show how this actually part I thought was really cool. So essentially, when they're in school, the neural linkers attach to the school network. And so when the teacher's giving instruction at the front of the class, they aren't actually hearing the teacher's voice. They're hearing the teacher's voice through their neural linker. So that way, depending on where they're sitting in the class, they can always hear clearly. And the teacher, even though they see him like writing on a board and stuff like that, it's actually all digital and they're seeing it through their neural linker. So it's a whole virtual environment that, and then they also do things like you can pay, like you can do e-transfers of payment from your neural linker. You can use it to like unlock your house. I mean, it's basically, like I said, you think about all the ways that our phones and stuff have evolved to do all of these different transactions. The neural linker itself does that and then a hell of a lot more.
Oh yeah, this world would be a fucking the Neurolinker is like the hacker's dream.
Well, I think they try to talk at length about how they've tried to make it hack proof, but I mean, Accel World in the first volume, somebody's gets hacked, so it's not even really that.
I think somebody gets hacked 2 or 3 times in the first 4 volumes.
Listen, as someone who's into IT, there's nothing that is unhackable.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Yeah.
Because literally, when you say that, you're literally telling every single fucking hacker that, hey, come target me, because guess what? You can get street cred for making this guy look like a chump.
So the story picks up. Main character is Haruyuki Arita, or Haru. Everybody just calls him Haru. He's this short, overweight kid who's getting picked on, being bullied, because, no matter how much society advances, there's always dickheads. And, he basically is this incredible gamer because, he's that's what he escapes to, right? The whole thing starts off essentially like him getting bullied at school, and he goes to this little used men's washroom, and then he dives into the virtual environment and plays this game just to basically burn off steam. But he ends up getting approached by one of the most beautiful and popular girls at the school, an upperclassman that everybody refers to as Kuroyuki Hime. And she basically takes interest in him and is like, I think that it would work if you installed this app. Not everybody can make it work, but I think you'd be a one who could make it work. And it turns out to be this game called Brain Burst. And well, we'll talk much about it, but Brain Burst is a hell of a lot more than just a game. And it has not just implications for the game in the game, but also very much real world implications as well. And essentially, it is the whole like story is about the whole mystery about how did this whole Accel world become created? What is the purpose? The whole idea is that essentially, if you can kill enough players who are at the highest level, you will quote unquote win the game and be able to find out what it means and find the creator and meet the creator.
Listen, the true purpose of this game is to resurrect our Lord and Savior, Kirito Christ. I'm calling it now.
You know what? Okay, well, we'll talk a little bit about the whole philosophy and theories and everything else, because I had a theory about who developed this game, and then
I have several theories, and after I read Aincrad, I've swapped a couple of out for other theories, but like I've got some crackpot shit. Like we're going full government conspiracy mode, tinfoil hat.
Well, we're going to get there, obviously. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit, I guess, about the first volume, because, of course, that sets up the whole thing. So in the first volume, obviously, it's introducing us to the whole like society, how the Neurolinker works and everything else, and the whole Brain Burst program. And we are pretty much told that not everyone can install the Brain Burst program. It will only work for very select individuals. I don't think we find out until later on, beyond these first 4 volumes, how exactly why, like what exactly it entails.
I think there's 2 conditions that are mentioned in the first 4 volumes. One is the age of the person.
Yes.
They have to have won a Neurolinker since shortly after birth.
Yes.
And
so I think it's like I think you had to be born like in a certain year and afterwards to make it work.
Because Neuralinkers didn't exist before that.
Right. Yes.
And the second was they have to have some kind of mental agility.
Yes.
So the reflexes,
and there are definitely hints in these first 4 volumes that the avatar that they inhabit in Brain Burst, because they don't appear as themselves, the avatar that they inhabit, the abilities that avatar has and everything else are somewhat based on some kind of deep psychological issue, whether it be I mean, most of them, it seems to be based on some kind of trauma.
It's similar to like Infinite Dendrogram in a sense, like how like your embryo is based on your psyche and shit, what you do in the game. But
kind of, yeah.
And Accel World, it's based on your like psychology, like your forms itself. I mean, if we all joined Accel World, what the fuck would we look like?
Oh God, I don't even want to know about it. I shudder to think. Well, because the whole thing is that with Haru, he becomes Silver Crow, and so first of all, he's this short, fat kid. He comes into the game. He's all stretched out, lean and long and sleek, and he is one of the first ever Accel World inhabitants who can fly.
Fly naturally, there's a distinction. Fly naturally.
Yes, yeah, like actual flight, not like boost into the sky with like a
A
piece of
jetpack or some
equipment
item.
or yeah, exactly. Like he can fly like a bird instead of like fly like a human who has to have some kind of tool to do it. And part of that we're given is Koriyuki Hime, when she gives him the program, basically says, "Hey, you're going to go home, and tonight you are probably going to have some wicked, crazy ass dream. And when you wake up in the morning, we'll see whether that thing's actually worked or not." And he does have said dream, and most people say that it's like a nightmare. It's like this horrible dream, dragging up all these like deep-rooted hurt and pain and everything. And the whole thing with Haru is that if I recall like correctly, it's his thing that he's like kind of like reaching out for the sky, and he's like, I need to escape. Like if only I could reach out and go higher and go faster and get away and all this kind of stuff. So you're right. Like the kind of abilities they have often seems to have to do with this sort of desire that, and sometimes that desire can be associated with a hurt or some kind of like emotional damage, but it could be other things as well. So all the characters in Accel World are a little damaged.
I think a little damaged is. I think we could go from a little damaged to massively damaged, but like there's some fucking train wrecks, man. Like, gotta pick up the pieces of sorrow and despair.
Well, yeah, that is true. Well, it's pretty sad when like eventually Haru seems to be one of the more level-headed individuals in the whole series, which is like kind of twisted. But anyway, there becomes this whole like there's this whole hierarchy in the game, obviously. So the game at its base level is like a fighting game. So it is essentially like if you go onto an open network and you are a brain burster, you can be found by other players and challenged to duels. And essentially, you start off with a certain amount of points. If you lose all your points, the game uninstalls from you and you can never reinstall it. If, however, you proceed, you can eventually reach level 9. And then at level 9, you either stop progressing or your only option to go higher is to kill other level 9 players. And essentially, if you're level 9 and you get killed, you're out of the game too. Like, I don't think it's even a matter of.
Oh yeah, we should also mention that like you also lose your memories of brain burst.
Well, I was going to get to that because they kind of discuss that in Volume 2 a lot more. Volume 2 really deals with this idea that, like, Volume 1 introduces the whole idea of that they can accelerate even in the real world and essentially move or like see things at a slower rate so they can plan things out. So, if you're like
and react faster as well. It's like reaction time.
yeah, exactly. And you can also like expend a crap ton of your points to accelerate yourself, push yourself even beyond like move at supersonic speeds in the accelerated state.
Yeah, because I think there's like a theory of that, like how basically like the pain that you feel in your physical bodies is to prevent you from going like 100% out, because if you did, you would damage your body. So I'm assuming that thing like sort of turns off that limiter for a brief second or two.
Well, I mean, they don't that's the one thing that I don't think they've ever fully explained. Like, so essentially the whole real world accelerated state they theorize has to do with the fact that there is a prolific number of security cameras in this Japanese of 2046 that essentially they are everywhere out in the public eye, and that essentially somehow Brainburst itself takes information from these cameras and Yeah, I mean, it's all a lot of weird pseudoscience, honestly. But it's one of the things that they talk about how, like, even when you go into Brain Burst, it's using the information from those cameras to build the landscapes. But the reason that the inside of the buildings don't look the same is because there's not a lot of cameras inside private buildings. So there's this whole tie-in to that. There's this prolific technology in Japan that not only is Brainburst this weird pirate program, not only does it have all sorts of very stringent conditions about how it functions, not only does it seem to be able to tie in to your memories and your brain and everything else, but on top of all of that, it seems to have hacked its way in to all of the surveillance technology and security technology that exists in Japan.
And the fact that it has done that undetected is also pretty
freaky, right?
Like, yeah, because usually with most systems, like if you've got like someone who's hacked into your system, like you can check for that. Like obviously it's like you can check for that either manually or automatically using some sort of program or whatever like that. Like I've got a rough understanding, so I'm not an expert, but like if someone is like in your network, you can discover if someone's like infiltrated your network. But the fact that this program has infiltrated the network and hasn't been detected yet, like either it's really fucking advanced or the security system is not as great as they think it is.
We already established that the computer security in this future is shit. I mean, there are 1,000 players. I think that's the number they used at some point. 1,000 players regularly logging in, taking data from all the security cameras, and nobody's noticing all the traffic they create.
Well, but I mean, on the flip side, though, you like, yeah, I mean, it's again, this is one of those things where if you try to apply what we know about how things, digital signatures and stuff, and what you notice in spikes and activity and stuff like that, that we would associate with our world now, yeah, it becomes very questionable how these people would go undetected.
Just don't think about it too hard.
I mean, and that's not even the most egregious illogical things that are in this novel.
Oh, I mean, you can't, like, it's not a series to take, seriously. I mean, come on, it's essentially like it's a big series that was inspired by Street Fighter. Like, come on.
I mean, when I watched the anime, it was not so bad because maybe you didn't think too hard because it was moving too fast. But when you read the novel, you have too much time to think, and that is not a good thing for this novel.
Well, I mean, again, right? There's certain levels of Kawahara-ness to this series.
Yeah.
We should trademark that Kawahara-ness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even the villains in this first, like, we're only really talking about the first 4 books.
At least they're not rapists, okay? That's a vast improvement, okay?
Well, that is true. They aren't.
That is a vast improvement.
Although there is like sort of, okay, well, I won't go there. I was gonna say there is kind of an element of NTR there with Duskbreaker or whatever the heck, or Dusk Taker he is, and Chiori.
But he's not a rapist. He's not there yet.
Like, he doesn't do anything to her, thank God. But there is that element of like, I stole her from you, kind of. Still, though, whatever, it's fine. Wow, this series is so easy to go off on a tangent. I don't even know how we're gonna hold it together.
Don't tempt me.
So like this first volume alone, so we find out like not only about the existence of brain bursts, not only what the program is capable of, but like at one point, yeah, remember like that guy is like driving the car and he's going to run Haru down, and Kuriyuki Hime essentially uses the whole next level accelerated so that she can move fast enough to push Haru to safety, and then she gets like hit by the car and she gets really badly hurt, and then Haru goes to the hospital because she's being hunted. I kind of like, I kind of like, I think, Koriyuki Hime as a character because she's not really a tsundere, because she is quite open with Haru about her feelings for him, even if he...
Refreshingly so.
Yeah, exactly. And
well, she also says that like she owns him and he is hers.
Yeah, like I mean, she's very upfront about the fact that like you know I'm in love. I love you. Like I would give up anything for you, really. Like, and I mean Haru. It's
Accept your freedom. Accept your freedom.
but like even Haru himself, like I think that's the one point of frustration in the book is just that Haru has such a crap sense of self-esteem that even when he's got this girl basically falling on her knees confessing to him, he's kind of like, "You're so kind, but you know,
It's
I'm fucking
not like she
worthless."
used
Like
her
you can't.
precious ability and almost died in the process to save you, but you know, maybe she can't
Right.
love an ugly fat loser like me, like wah, like he.
So, Bio, how long does Haru keep that up? That denial.
So far as the volumes that I've read,
25 volumes.
What,
yeah,
you're
pretty
up to
much.
date?
I was gonna say, Mirage.
He still it's like, even though the fact that she keeps on telling him, like, yeah, I own you, bitch. You are mine. I will not let anyone take you. Like, I'm just like, Jesus, she's going, like, she's very possessive of Haru.
Yeah, it's true. But but you know what though? Like there are times where like she's not yandere possessive of Haru at least. But I mean like her
Not yet.
well no, okay. But like her levels of jealousy are very obvious. Like especially, you know, you get into even into like book 2, where Unico, Scarlet Rain, the king of the Red Legion shows up and she's like, you know, clinging onto Haru and stuff, and Kuriyuki Hime's like having none of that.
Yeah, she T poses and asserts dominance. She's like, nah, this is my man, bitch.
but I kind of but like so Koriyuki Hime, I like her because she's got this like really heavy backstory, and she like basically just mercilessly like cut the head off of one of the other kings just because she like, enough of your talk about peace, like the whole point is to win. You know, like
Yeah, listen, she is the Japanese woman of war.
like
She dreams of conquest.
What I noticed, the best way to become a king in Brainburst is to have an avatar with a primary color.
yes. Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely, right? Black Lotus, um, the yellow, I can't remember all
Radio,
of them. Yeah,
Yellow
yellow radio.
Radio, Blue Knight, Red Rider.
Yeah. Well, Scarlet Rain now.
Because there isn't supposed to be any color isn't supposed to appear twice, so there can't be another red character. But actually, I think there's Black Lotus and Black Wise. That's the only color that appears twice, as far as I know.
I guess Kawahara forgot to go to the color wheel and pick a new name.
Yeah, I'm not sure how for 1,000 players how they're going to come up with 1,000 different colors if they're all supposed to be unique.
Well, but they don't always have names in their, like they don't always have a color necessarily. Like I mean, the second in command of the Red Legion is Blood Leopard. So I mean, we could
Yeah,
say like, okay, blood has a color, but you know what I mean? Like it it implies a dominant color just by what it is. But I mean, you know, you could be called Pisshead and we would think, oh, your color is yellow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying.
You'd be called like cocaine sugar or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Or Snow White and Snow White.
Well, I mean, right? Like this is, well, you've put in white, but we're just saying, like, you know, you could, there are ways that characters are named that imply a color because of a color attached to that thing, but it doesn't specifically mention a color. Like there's that
Like you could be like depression trash can or whatever.
well, like the villain that we have in like volumes 3 and 4 is what, Dusk Taker. And so I
Yes.
mean he's the color of dusk, right? So I mean we associate dusk as being dark and not exactly black, but you know what I mean? Like again,
It's
there's
like a darkish kind of gray.
yeah. So there are all of these different things that
yeah.
you know, there's like graphite edge or stuff like that. Like
Otherwise, they wouldn't get away with the 1,000 different colors.
no way. Nope, not a hope. Well, I mean, come on. Do you really want to? I think honestly that Kawahara did that because as a writer, can you imagine like every time you had to come up with a bloody character, like their name would either have to be red, blue, white. Like, oh my God, I'd want to shoot myself. I'm like, I can't even come up with good
You
names
just go
anymore.
to a word randomizer. You pick a random color and a random word, and you put them together.
Right? You just start naming people on the hex code of the. You just click on random in Photoshop and name them the hex code. I'm GB0312.
Oh no, don't! You're
There's
giving me nightmares of my website design class.
Yeah.
yeah, there's 50 Shades of
C
Grey.
sharp, CSS is cancer.
There's 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, see, there you go, right? Although there isn't a Gray Legion, though, is there? They just fall under the black. Well, now the Kings of Pure Color, they call them specifically the Kings of Pure Color. Do we think that that's because they were some of the earliest players, and that's why they started as Pure Color, and that would also be why they are the highest ranked players? I can't remember whether that's. I don't know if that's really discussed in the first four, and in fact, I don't even know.
I don't think they were the first players, but like they were one of the they were one of the first player groups of the like generation of the people who joined up. Because if I remember correctly, quite a few of the all the kings there are like teenagers or like young adults.
Yeah. So,
But they are not the first players because Black Lotus talks about her parent.
mhm.
We haven't talked
Well,
about parents yet.
no, we haven't. Well, yeah, and I know Black Lotus's parent, but that's not announced for quite a while. That would be big spoilers for later on. In any case, yes. So there is that level of like, well, I mean, again, right? Like it's kind of that. I mean, we see this in light novels a lot, right? Um, and 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 actually, Accel World is one of those books that kind of just really puts it out there. Is that it's that whole idea in light novels of the found family. So the people that you find in your journey become more of a family to you than your actual family. We see it tons of times, right? Like isekai, it happens a lot. And Accel World is very similar, right? So the person who gives you Brain Burst, that installs Brain Burst onto your neural linker, is what they call your parent, and you are their child. And you can only give it to one person, if I recall, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
makes the whole system pretty much unsustainable, but
Well, I mean, it's kind of a. Well, you're right. Like, it's kind of a weird thing because obviously, if you have people who don't pass it on and you start whittling away players by uninstalling it by them being defeated, eventually you would whittle away the whole thing to nothing.
I would actually wonder what would happen if you're the only player left standing. Would you win?
Well, that's the point, right? Like that's what I mean. Koriyuki Hime is not looking to eliminate everybody, but that is the point: is for her to stand alone as the highest ranked player.
the problem is for most players, the whole thing is a zero sum game. So either they take in duels they take points or they lose them to another player. They don't. There's no increase in points anywhere. There's only a sink if you use them to log on in the first place, and if you use them for something in real life. So points for lower level players only decrease over time. There's no way to gain points.
Well, I think this is probably why we see the rise of these clans, essentially, right? Because you can gain points through other means.
Yes.
So there's.
But you have to get to level 4 to even enter this area where you can gain
Right.
points, and it's supposed to be very inefficient. And if there's 1,000 players, then say at most maybe 250 can level 4 and above.
Yeah, like a very small. I would
Yeah.
say like it's a small selection.
Yeah. So those are the only ones that can increase their points, and they are not going to lose those to lower levels.
Is it like a grinding area where you grind for points? Sort of like a video game.
Yeah, that's the unlimited neutral field or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Which they introduce in the second book. Again, like this is one of those things where Kawahara has continually expanded Accel World as he's gone along, right? Like unlike say Sword Art Online, where he had to keep creating these brand new like games to try and keep the series going, he instead, what he does with Accel World is that there's just new layers to the game that people unravel as they get higher leveled. And I mean, essentially in the second book, he creates this unlimited neutral field, which is basically like, it seems massive. Like, we know that it covers at least the entirety of Japan. We don't know if it's goes bigger than that, but we do know for a fact that it is at least covering the entirety of Japan, because Kuruyuki Hime actually travels from a hell of a distance away back in the unlimited neutral field back home so that she can assist Haru and them at the end of like book 4.
Wasn't she in like Okinawa or something?
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's a distance.
Yeah, and that's another problem. You have 250 people in a game world the size of Japan. How do you ever run into anybody?
You have to seek them out.
I mean, the vast majority of people are probably in this area of Tokyo. Even then, Tokyo is massive, and you should go for days without meeting any other player, unless you're shooting signal flares into the sky.
We also know, though, that we don't know the exact radius of being on the network, right? Like, if you're on a private network, obviously, like at school or at home, you're basically protected from anybody discovering you. But for instance, in the first book, when Haru walks out of his apartment and automatically switches over to basically the World Wide Web, he gets nailed. Like, somebody challenges him right away. So
Yeah, like very quickly.
yeah, so I get they certainly give the impression that there are zones, but it seems to me like the second you cross over into a zone, even if that zone is, and I think they're somewhat tied to the wards of Japan. Um, it seems that
You're
is,
all 20 of them.
yeah, so it seems like as soon as you enter into a ward, anybody in that entire ward can find you. So it's not like you have to be within, 10 feet of each other or whatever, because yeah, you're right, that would be impossible to maintain.
And it would also, like, if you had a system like that, it would definitely build up, like, this sense of paranoia, like, oh, you're low on points, and then you go outside, they get your eggs, your milk, and all that shit, and then you get challenged to a duel and get chucked the Acceleration World, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, but that's only in the normal world. You can see people in your vicinity, but if you are in the unlimited field, there's no way to detect anyone around you.
Yeah, the unlimited neutral field has a whole bunch of problematic shit to it. Like,
Yeah.
really, I mean, you're right. Like, the likelihood that you could go into the unlimited neutral field, and the likelihood that you would notice anybody unless you really or just happened to be near them is pretty low. But I get the impression, just now, I mean, again, I get the impression that what they say basically about the unlimited neutral field is that even though it does tie roughly to Japan in terms of location and stuff. And I get the idea that there are areas in it that people have favored for farming. Like it's basically like the same as a JRPG, right? Like, the place where you need to go to kill the monsters to get gold. You know where you go to kill the monsters to get your higher levels because they give good XP, right? And I kind of get the idea that the unlimited neutral field is similar. And that's why you still have players that run into each other, because there are these areas that they know are places you go to farm.
And wasn't it a similar thing that Kirito was doing as well, like in Sword Art, like he was farming?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why that was why they called him a beater, right? That he was a cheater beta player, because they're like, you knew exactly where to go right away, that the monsters are low level, that you could defeat them without being worried about it, but would boost your level. So that's how you got so much stronger, so much faster. Right?
But
Yep.
So
even from the outside, if you're on the outside, they make it a big problem to log out, to not be visible, to always be at risk of being challenged. Where's the problem? Just use another neurolinker that hasn't Brainburst installed.
I don't think you can. Like, I think they're literally installed right into your neck or your spine or something.
No.
remove them.
It's installed into the Neurolinker, and this Neurolinker can be taken off.
Yeah, the Neurolinker can be removed, but the Neurolinker is synced to your own brainwaves.
Yes, but
so
what do you do if your Neurolinker gets damaged? I mean, it's like glasses. So usually everyone who wears glasses has a spare pair at home, and in this society, I'm sure pretty much everyone has a spare Neurolinker just in case the one they're using is damaged.
I don't believe they do. Now, I don't know. I can't remember. I know that they talk about characters getting new ones.
They don't talk about it, but it's just logical. If you have something that is so important for your day-to-day life, you use it to watch, to see your lessons at school. You use it to make payments. You use it for everything, and you don't have a spare in case it breaks. That doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, you say that, but again, like you have to think, like part of me thinks, and again, I don't believe that the books actually come out and say this, but the way that they make it sound, and there is something that occurs in a later volume that's beyond these four that does talk about somebody using another neural linker, but it kind of seems to imply that because of how important these things are, that there is a control. Like it's not like you can just go out and buy yourself a like 10 neural linkers and come home with them. I don't, it doesn't seem to be like that. I don't, like, again, I don't know, because I don't know that what I have read, I don't think makes it explicit, but it does make it sound like it is a very weird thing for someone to have more than one. I think it's basically like you have to retire your old one to get a new one.
Like a trade-in.
It's sort of like how you turn in your old cell phone to get a new cell phone, right? Like you go to your provider and you're like, hey, I want the newest iPhone. And they're like, well, give us your old iPhone and we'll give you a deal. I kind of get the impression it's like that, basically.
I have my old smartphone as a spare in case my current one gets damaged.
Well, most of mine that I got a new one because my old one completely crapped out on me. So, I mean, again, I think it's probably, I mean, you also have to think too, like we as a species generally tend to become very possessive of things that are incredibly important to us. So I kind of think like when you have something that's literally messing with your brain, I don't know that you have a lot of spare ones laying around, like I think you become very attached to the one that you have.
Like, doesn't Naru, or I forget her name, like the girl, doesn't she have doesn't her Neuralink like is customized, like she's got like decals on it and shit?
Oh yeah, like lots of people do all sorts of customization and stuff like that to them, or get them in a certain color or stuff like that, like certain designs and things. But
it's like building like a personal PC. Like I got my new PC and I had it like designed and shit the way I wanted it.
Yeah, I get the impression that's kind of what it is, right? And that it's essentially like you're not going to have. You think of all the things in our life that a lot of us, not all of us, but that a lot of us only have one of, right? Like you only have one copy of your bank card, a lot of people, right? You only have one copy of your Visa. You only have one, most people have one cell phone unless they're, issued one by work. But for their personal uses, they've got one phone, right? So I kind of feel like that's the idea. That's kind of the idea that Kawahara approached this. I don't know that he even thought about like, what you're saying in terms of having a backup just in case this breaks or what breaks.
I mean, if I can't go out in public without the risk of being challenged to something so important, that would be a big reason to get a spare.
Well, I yes, you're right. But again, I can't remember whether he's ever said anything explicit about why they can't do that.
I don't think he thought about it.
Probably not. Well, I think because you know what? Here's the thing. I think that Kawahara basically was of the mind that if you could do this cool shit, you would always want to do it. So why would you not have it on? But he does say like you can disconnect it.
Yeah, because he makes a huge deal about not being able to log off and the danger it poses.
Well, but you can disconnect it from the World Wide Web at will. And he does say that most places you go into, like your home, the school, and stuff like that, hospitals, that they all have private networks. So your Neuralinker...
Private networks that can be hacked.
Well, whatever. I mean, we can argue up and down, left, right, and center about whether they're secure or not. But I'm just saying, like, if you're sitting in your house, no one can discover you. If you're on your school network, the only way someone can discover you is if they walk into your school and join that network. But even then, it sounds like they make it sound like not anybody can join a school network. You have to be a student. So, like, you have to be registered. Again, yes, we can argue that you can hack it. Okay, whatever. Like, but that's essentially how society runs, is this idea that most major institutions or buildings and stuff have their own networks. And that really, it just seems to be when you're walking around on the street that you're in that open network. And you can turn it off so you're not on that open network. That's why in the first book, Kuruyuki Hime is like, when you leave your building, you need to turn that thing off and not turn it on again until you get back to school. And of course, Haru just fucking forgets and doesn't do it. Right? So and they can share points, right? Like if I recall, that's part of the deal, is that they can share points. So technically, as a low level player, you could, if you joined a clan, particularly if you have a parent who's watching out for you. The idea, I think, is that they're trying to get you out there to do battles, but if you start getting dangerous, they can siphon off a few of their points so that even if you lose a game, you're not going to be bottomed out, unless of course they're a sadistic jerk. But I mean, that is what it is. But I think that's part of the reason.
There are enough of those kinds.
Oh, there are certainly those kinds. But I think that's part of the reason why Kawahara makes it so that you can only install it on one person's machine, right? Because they're...
Yeah, so you can't, like, farm newbies for credits.
Right. Well, yeah, like, basically the whole idea is that you are... the idea is that this is a one-time thing. So you would potentially only give it to somebody that mattered to you, or that, you wanted to see succeed, right? Like, even Kuruyuki Hime, the reason she gives it to Haru is because she sees him playing that, like, virtual tennis game or whatever, or badminton or whatever it is. And the kid is already, like, in this ridiculous pig avatar. Don't ask me, when you're getting bullied because you're short and fat, why the hell, when you could create your own avatar at school, why would you create the pig avatar?
I think
if I remember correctly, I think they hacked him to look like that, and he never changed it back.
I think he was bullied to make it look like that.
Is it? I can't remember. I'm trying to remember now.
They either hacked his account to make it look like that, or he was bullied. It's either, but
yeah. Anyway, but I mean, again, like Kuruyuki Hime, she gives him brain burst because she sees in him this ability to be a good player, right? And it's kind of implied. I mean, obviously, it's not always the case, but it is kind of implied that seems to be kind of the standard that most brain bursters look at, as like, either I'm going to give this to somebody that is very important to me that I want to share this with, or I'm giving it to someone that I think is going to do very well. So I think that, like, there is, like, some ideology built into the idea that, you're right. Like, if everybody was left to their sharks right from the get-go, you'd probably have a lot more people getting wiped out.
You have to get from 100 to 200 points just to get to level 2. So, more on average, you have to kick one player out to get to level 2, and another one to get to level 3. So for one player to get to level 3 or 4, he has to kick out 2 or 3 others.
Well, but I mean, again, you're not necessarily... Don't you get more points for beating a player who's higher level than you?
Yes, but you are unlikely to do so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're unlikely to do so, and you risk more too.
It's still a zero-sum game. So the higher player loses the same amount of points that you gain. It's no.
Well, this is the whole thing. Like, we do see like even in the first book, like Taku, who is Haru's friend and is Chiyuri's boyfriend.
I thought they weren't dating.
Yeah, they're dating in the first book. They are. I think they kind of break it off. I don't know. I'm trying to remember how that all went down.
I never got the impression that they were dating. I thought, like,
oh no, they are dating.
I thought they were just like
in the first volume they are dating.
They are dating. Yes.
Yep.
because that's part of the whole thing, is that he's all worked up. That's part of the thing, is that he's like, Chiuri's going out with him, but he's feeling constantly inferior because he feels like she would rather be with Haru. That's where he gets pissed off, because he's kind of like, the last couple of days Chiuri's been doing nothing but talk about you. She's doing nothing but wanting to take care of you. Like, I can't even compete even though I'm her boyfriend. So yeah, like, oh yeah, he's definitely dating her in that. Although it doesn't really seem like, the way Kawahara makes their relationship, it never really seems like they're really dating. Like, it seems like they're dating in title, but they're not really. He never presents them in a way that.
That's why like because I'm pretty sure they weren't, like, even though I read the book, like, I'm pretty sure, like, is it like, I always thought it was like one of those fake relationship type shit deals.
No, they're explicitly state that they're dating, and they are. But again, like, Kawahara never writes that relationship like it's a real dating relationship. I kind of feel like, again, I don't know whether that's just an immaturity thing on Kawahara's part, because he wrote this back in 2008, or whether that is Kawahara thinking that these characters are all so damaged that there's no way they could have a proper relationship. I mean, it's probably a bit of both, honestly.
So they're willing to be in a relationship with each other, and let their best friend be like the third wheel and be depressed about it. Yeah.
Yeah. X, right?
Well, friends like that, who needs enemies?
It's not really that he was depressed about it that much.
No, like, I don't think, because Haru never comes off as that. Like, he never comes off as wanting to be with Chiuri. Like, he obviously, okay, he gets flustered when she's close to him and stuff like that, because he's a dude, right? Like, you can't blame him. But I'm just saying, like, but he never comes across that he has those kind of feelings for her. Like, if anything, he seems very determined that he wants Haku and Chiuri to be happy together. And I mean, of course, the whole idea is the whole book setting him up to be with Kuriyuki Hime anyway. So there's no point for him to be.
Well, technically, she does own him anyway, so it's not like he has a choice.
But I mean, it's not like he wants to be with Chiuri. That's what I'm getting at. Is like, that relationship is never set up as something that he's the third wheel or that he wants to be a part of, because he doesn't want that. And like, the whole point of the series is for him to not have it. I mean, sure, like, Kawahara likes to play around with it, and every main character of Kawahara's has to have a harem and stuff like that. But but that's Kawahara.
But can we talk a bit about Taku? Because
yes,
that's one thing I thought was a bit strange about Volume 1, how he was using his brainburst cheats to win at
Kendo, right?
Kendo, yeah.
Hmm.
And
shameful display.
Yeah, and all around being the antagonist of Volume 1, going all like he hates Haru and trying to kill Kuriyuki Hime and all of this. And then at the end, with just 1 or 2 pages of dialogue, he's totally converted to the good side.
It's because the battle broke through the barriers of his heart.
Yeah.
Our fists.
That was a bit very, very quick and very
very cringy.
Haru's fists of love and justice broke through.
His big meaty fists.
And from one moment to another, he's all, "Oh, I was so wrong, and now I've seen the light, and goodbye, dark side of the Force."
I fucking hate that. I would have liked it if he became like an anti-hero. Like, he's going to be less of a dick to Haru, but he's still like an asshole.
Well, yeah, but
I'm the one with power.
And from that
unlimited.
From that moment on, he's going. He's continuing. He's going on to be a paragon of virtue for all the future volumes.
Yeah. He is. He is the good, upstanding dude. He's
like the Sith Lord who decided to be like, he's still a Sith, but he like goes to the light side of the Force instead of like the dark side.
Well, I mean, yes, no, I know what you mean, and you're right, like that. But again, like, that is kind of probably the corniest part of Accel World, is that there is the like this, and it happens often. Like, I mean, this I've only read the first, I think, 12 or 13 books, and this is not like a, you know, this is not a unique experience where the whole thing is that we will be able to feel our feelings in the game, fighting. When our fists and our swords cross, we will know how we feel about each other. Like, it is one of the cornier parts of the whole series is somehow like,
Yeah, it's the Japanese obsession with like final duels and rivalries and
well, I mean, definitely,
the way of the warrior.
like, I definitely think that plays a part in it. Absolutely. But I think too, it's, and I mean, the weird part about it is that Kawahara has often gone on record saying he's not much of a gamer.
Oh, that much is obvious.
Well, and I know, and when we're talking
his
about
game design is terrible.
well, I mean, dude, all of his game designs are terrible. Come on, let's be honest. Like Sword Art Online, I mean,
That's what I was saying.
yeah, like as generic as you can get. Accel World has way too many.
Like, what type of game like kills its players?
Well, I mean,
that is horrible. That is a horrible product.
I mean, if you go to see fairy dance, not sure what was the game called.
Alfheim Online.
Alfheim.
I thought it was called Incest Online.
You have a game world where you are traveling for a week just to go from your starting area, a week real time, to go from your starting area to the hub. Who has?
It's immersion, Mirage. It's immersion.
Yeah.
Shitty immersion.
Even in World of Warcraft, just after it came out, you had some distances took you maybe an hour or maybe let's say 2 hours to get to a remote dungeon, but a week just to travel.
Oh, I hear you. Like, I mean, we this is the whole, yeah, like again, Kawahara has his bumps in the roads, like we're not going to argue. But the weird thing I think is though, you know, my point is that he says that he's not a gamer. And again, clear enough. However, there is in Accel World in particular this very much nostalgic idea that somehow games unite us, that somehow games help us overcome the things that we can't express in words. That even the fact that Haru has like this classic game collection that everybody gets all hyped over and plays and has fun and all this kind of stuff. There's this constant idea in Accel World that somehow games allow you to go beyond the barriers of normal life and that you can, you know, get into these well, as I said, the whole idea with Accel World, I mean, it is a found family, right? You have your parent, you have your clan. The thing that's made very apparent for all of these characters is that their parents are really kind of like, you know, absentee parents.
Distant.
Yeah, like they're distant. I mean, Haru lives with his mom by herself. I believe his dad left, if I recall. I think his mom and dad had split up. His mom is some executive who's never home. She just leaves him note messages on his Neurolinker and transfers him money to his Neurolinker. Get yourself something. Leaves frozen
Best
food.
mother ever.
Right? So
I love you, D. I'm not going to spend time with you. Bye.
Yeah, right. I think I don't even know in the 12 books that I've read. I think maybe she was in one paragraph. I'm just trying to like, I mean, outside of her being mentioned that she left him a note or something, I can't even remember if he's actually introduced anyone to his mother physically. I don't know if we've ever seen her physically.
I've got a girlfriend.
Well, you know, right? So, and Koriyuki Hime lives alone. You know, I mean, the only one who seems to have a somewhat apparent is Chiuri, who's got a mother who apparently cooks amazing food.
Talking about Koriyuki Hime's parent, is her parent mentioned anywhere in the following volumes? Does she turn up?
Yes.
Yeah, because one sentence that stood out to me, when Haru asks her about her parent, she answers, "I don't want you to be curious about her, so I won't even tell you her name." And if it were me, that's the one thing that would make me curious about something. It would be a sentence like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Yeah, she does. You do find out about her, yes, later on, but much later on.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of a spoiler, but yeah, it's
Suspense.
it's way beyond these 4 volumes. In fact, I don't think she's actually. Let me see. I'm at volume. Okay, so I've read 12 books. She has not actually shown up in the flesh in the first 12 books. We have an idea of who she is. So that's yeah.
Speaking of ideas, should we talk about like the conspiracy theories?
Oh my god. Okay, yeah. Like I mean,
before we talk about what happens in volume 3 and 4.
well, we haven't even really talked about volume 2. We've just been talking about general stuff as it is. Yeah, it's okay. So, right. So first of all, I think, I mean, we can get like the whole later volumes. I mean, really, I think volume 2 has the more
When there's
interesting.
Chrome Disaster, we
Yeah.
learn about the Incarnate system, Dust Taker's a douchebag, and the Accelerated Society.
Yeah.
I mean,
So yeah.
the best thing about Volume 3 is Ash Roller.
Well, I mean,
Dude,
yeah.
Ash Roller is fucking cool. He reminds me of like a Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, he's just
Henshin.
Wait until you find out his backstory. It's wild. It's pretty wild. Anyway, but again, spoilers. I think the only thing that I really want to get into, like when we've talked a little bit about the unlimited neutral field, which I mean, I mean, I don't know whether people are listening to this who don't follow the series because we're spoiling the crap out of a lot of stuff, but obviously it's this field where it's like
people who listen to us know that we are spoiling the crap out of
I know they do, so they must. So yeah, it's people that have already read the series, so whatever, we're not letting anything out of the
You're looking
bag.
for confirmation bias.
At least the first 4 volumes. That's
well,
what
I mean,
the
it's what
warning was.
Well, and the anime was based on that too. So even if you've seen the anime,
Yeah.
you know everything we're talking about too, right? The only thing that, like, I kind of feel like volume 2, like I liked volume 2 because I thought that again, he's trying to push this even further. The unlimited neutral field, I think, I was kind of like, well, I guess I kind of see. It's sort of like, to me, again, I'm thinking like JRPGs. I kind of think about how, like, when you start a JRPG, there's like the main town that you're in. And like this, they used to do this with like older Final Fantasies and stuff, right? You had like the big town, like you start Final Fantasy VII and you're in Midgar, and there's all this stuff going on in Midgar, and you play for all these hours, and then all of a sudden you're like, end up in the big world map, and you're like, holy shit, there's a lot of places to go. And I kind of feel like that's how
I think Final Fantasy VII is more of an outlier in this regard, because most JRPGs don't start in the main town.
Well, I'm not saying that they all do, but like, but to me, that's kind of the idea that I feel is like Brainburst is that same idea. It's like when you're low level, you start off at just like the fighting, the low levels. And then when you're a high enough level, it's like you get the world map. That's kind of how I see it. But I thought what was interesting about it, and I mean, it makes sense on the bigger level, is the whole idea of the brain burst program being able to affect you as a person, like affecting your personality and stuff like that. And then eventually we find out that when brain installs, you lose all memory of anything associated with brain burst, which I still don't quite get. Like, I mean, you'd understand, like you'd remember going to school and stuff, but like you wouldn't remember a whole, like, would you not kind of think to yourself, man, there are a lot of gaps in my memory. Like, what the hell did I do?
That's another thing that doesn't make sense, and it's quite obvious that it's just there for story reasons, because otherwise,
well, it's just there so like adults or the wider society doesn't know about this shit,
because otherwise it would be impossible to keep that stuff secret, or otherwise it would be impossible to keep Dusk Taker from spilling everything after volume 4.
He's like, oh, you defeated me and you beat my ass, I'm just gonna rat on you to the police and all this crap.
Yeah, so it's just necessary for the story that the brain is going to get wiped whenever anyone is going to get kicked out of the game. So it doesn't have to make sense. That's just for the story.
Well, exactly. It's just to prevent the logic gap of, well, why isn't somebody talking about this if they're no longer playing it and they don't care?
It's
right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it opens quite a few other logic gaps, but yeah.
Like for example, how does it do that? Like for someone to lose memories,
It has to have write access to your brain.
Well, and we already know that it has read because that's how it creates your avatar,
Mhm.
right? And
so it just edits.
and we also know that, and we also know from the Chrome disaster that the people that Chrome disaster infects start changing personality wise in the real world as well, right?
I don't think we know that, at least not from the first 4 volumes.
Yeah, you do in volume 2. Yukino talks, or Unico talks about that, about how, like, because she knows the guy that is the current one who's infected, and she's like, he's not the same person. She does talk about how he's had personality changes.
Okay.
Yeah, she does mention that. That's part of the reason why she wants to get rid of it, is because she's like, I've even lost him in the real world, because I've lost him in the game because he's possessed, and I've lost him in the real world too because he's not the same person anymore.
Like, how terrifying is this actual program be? Like, it can edit your memories, but also like turn you into something that you're not.
Well, and again, like, this is the thing, like, you got to think, like, it's such a weird, like, and it's a weird series that way, right? Like, I mean, that whole, like, accelerated research society or whatever, where it's like they're trying to manipulate the game, and they're trying to, like, use the game in other ways, and, like, actually having people implant like chips in their head so that they can bypass using the neural linker and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it is ridiculous, the lengths, honestly, that people are going to in this game. But at the same time, when you kind of consider what this game is capable of, and the access this game has to, again, all the security systems in Japan and everything else, if you could control the game, that's some serious power that you've gained access to.
And if you look at some of the stuff that happened in like Aincrad in the Aincrad story arc, no, not Aincrad, sorry, Alicization. My bad, I'm mixing up terms. Like if you look at like the Alicization arc and the shit that, like, they made they made an AI into a self-aware cyborg robot.
Yeah.
Like that's terrifying. Like if Alice came to me in real life, I would be killing it with fire.
Oh, whatever. You would be like, please come to me naked in a box. I'd be fine with that.
Why Alice?
Who the fuck is Alice? Anyway.
I mean, Alice is not all that scary.
She's not scary, but what she represents is scary.
Well, she's just a human soul in a robot body, dude. It's not scary. She's just a girl.
In a virtual.
You're just a boy.
Virtual.
Isn't it more obvious? Anyway.
Maybe it's the second half of Alicization, because in the first half I don't think she's a robot. But
no,
okay.
it's the end of the Alicization arc.
Okay.
It just aired on. It's the anime.
She becomes a real girl.
It's like Pinocchio.
Okay.
Alice is a Pinocchio story, didn't you know? That's the whole Alicization arc. It's just retelling of Pinocchio.
Yeah, it's a deconstruction / gender subversion of Pinocchio.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, as I said, I stopped following it after the first season.
Anyway, moving on. You do have to think, like, this game is on so many levels incredibly terrifying, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I like, part of me understands reasoning that particularly like a particularly angsty teenagers would not want to give it up, especially if they do gain a ton of points that allows them to take advantage of the real world stuff.
Well, it's the power.
Well, this is it. Exactly. It's power, right? Like, even the kings of pure color, like, I mean, how many points do they have at this point? Like, you know what I mean?
Fuck tons.
Yeah, like, they can do whatever they want in the real world, accelerate as much as they want, and cheat on tests, or excel at, like, different sports or what have you. Like, have access to God knows what. Like, it's addictive. It is really addictive, and that's kind of the seedier part. Like,
well, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Enough, yeah. But like this, I think that's kind of the thing about this series that I always kind of felt reading it. I'm like, as much as it is put forward as kind of this, because we're seeing it mostly from Haru's point of view, and let's face it, Haru is an incredibly naive, heroic character, right? He is the penultimate good guy, despite how much he craps on himself, despite how much he calls himself this, that, and the next thing. I'm a coward, I'm a this, I'm a that, and all that kind of stuff. When it really boils down to it,
he's also a bit whiny at times.
okay. Didn't I make that obvious? But I mean,
so heroic is not the word I would that would come to mind first to describe him.
Well, okay, like I understand what you mean, and I don't disagree, but I just mean when the right decision has to be made, even if it's hard, Haru's going to do it. Right? Like Haru is not the guy who's going to shy away just because it's hard. He's not the guy who's going to...
He's going to agonize it for very long before he decides to do the right thing.
Well, I don't think he agonizes that long, but anyway.
I mean, that's the whole point of Ash Rider being necessary in Volume 3, because he's just moping around, feeling sorry for himself.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he needs somebody to kick him in the ass.
And then he needs Ash Rider and his parent, and it takes maybe half the book to get him back into gear.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, but again, right? Like, it's again the whole that sort of third and fourth book. I mean, it is that whole hero's journey thing, right? You've gotten really high on yourself because you have these wings, but now it's to clip your wings and bring you back to earth, and now you've got to claw your way back up again, right? I mean,
but it's really he's always moping that he now that he's lost his wings, he's worthless again, and he's fucking the only person in this game who actually has wings. If he's worthless because he doesn't have any, then so is everybody else.
But Haru doesn't. But again, this is the problem with Haru, right? He is a damaged character. He doesn't have good self-esteem. He associates his uniqueness as being his only good trait. And let's face it, I mean, by the third book, most of his fighting...
I know that, but it's still annoying.
Well, okay, he's not like some OP Chad like, Hajime from friggin' Arifureto, okay? Like, sure, okay, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. He's always going to be the fat, whiny kid. I'm sorry. That's just how it's going to go down. Unless there's like a 10-year jump at the end of Accel World where he's suddenly like, sprout up all of a sudden and he's like this super stud married to Kuriyuki Hime or something. I don't know, but... but other than that, he's always going to probably be the fat, whiny kid who doesn't believe in himself, which is sad. But I mean, but at the same time, I have to admit, when I started reading Accel World, I kind of felt that was a little refreshing that the characters weren't all like good characters. Like, there were flaws. There were parts of them that, like, I'm not saying that you can't get tired of Haru and his whining. I mean, everybody's going to have their tolerance level, but I, at the same time, was kind of like, I'm kind of glad that he's not the OP, ridiculous, I can do whatever I want and nobody can stand against me character after 2 books, which we do see often in light novels.
There should be degrees of everything. You don't have to don't have to be Hajime like to be, and you don't have to mope for half a volume either. So there are levels in between.
Well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And again, I get where you're coming from. I don't think you're wrong. But I at the same time, I'm just saying that I found it initially refreshing that there was this difference to the character over a lot of other light novel characters. Yeah, sometimes it's over the top, sometimes it goes beyond. Sometimes it's the same thing as, like, I find Haru's lack of self-esteem kind of equivalent to the harem protagonist who can't understand that these girls are in love with him, even though they throw themselves at him half naked and say, "Take me." Haru's kind of the same idea, right? He's the same kind of dense. He just can't see the forest for the trees. That's, I think, the more frustrating thing about Haru.
Yeah, and that's when it's in regard to Kuro Yukihime. It's not. I don't mind it all that much because that's his self-esteem as as a person. His for his romantic life, but he's a gamer, and as a gamer, he knows he's good. He's one of the best. And in this case, just because someone takes away one of his equipment, pieces of equipment, he's suddenly, oh, now I can't do anything anymore. This is something that I thought didn't fit his character. I know he romantically, yes, he's very has very low self-esteem, and that's understandable, but not as a gamer, not in the game.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I don't entirely disagree. However, as somebody who's, a fighting game, and if I was used to playing a certain character a certain way, and suddenly somebody took away one particular move that I loved, I'd be like, well, this sucks, and not want to play anymore.
Yeah, it's like playing Devil May Cry. It's like playing a new Devil May Cry, but you don't have like Trickster or Royal Guard or Stinger or Gunslinger.
Well, I'm kind of thinking of like when I played Mortal Kombat, the first one, I'd always play as Sub-Zero because I knew all of his moves. And then when like Mortal Kombat 2 came out, and I was like, moves don't work. What the? This game sucks. So I kind of like, so I get what you're saying. You're kind of like, he's more than just his wings. And as a gamer, he should probably realize that. And he should realize that as a gamer, he should be looking for other ways to do things, because typically if you're a really hardcore gamer, that's what you do. But at the same,
especially since there's more on the line than in a typical Mortal Kombat round.
well, that fair enough, exactly. But at the same time, like I said, as a gamer, there is part of me that's kind of like, I have my favorite set of moves, and if I lose even one of those moves, I'm pissed. Like my gaming experience has suddenly just taken a nosedive. So like I said, I think you can kind of go at
what
it from
do you
both
mean
points.
Ares is dead?
Yes. Oh my god, I was so pissed off. I had some awesome equipment on that chick, and you didn't even get that equipment back. So pissed off. Anyway. my top level materia for healing was on that girl, and I lost it. Anyway. Oh god. Major spoilers if they have that in this Final Fantasy VII remake. I don't know if they will.
Spoilers for more than games more than 20 years old don't exist.
Considering they showed like him letting her go into the water, like what in the very early trailers, like I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Now my brain is blown because I remember the trauma of that moment. And it was traumatic. Actually, no, funny story. So when I got that game, I was playing it at my girlfriend's place, and she was there. And like, I mean, Final Fantasy VII. Like, I know it's kind of silly to say it to people that are a lot younger, but when Final Fantasy VII came out, man, like it was like cutting edge. Like the cinematics on that, like they look hokey now, but the cinematics on it then at the time were like awe-inspiring. And so like my girlfriend, and then like her two brothers, and like a friend or two of theirs were all like watching, because it's like this awesome game, and that happened, and all of us were just like stopped, and we're just like what it was effing traumatic. Like you just can't explain that to people anymore. Anyway, very much an off-topic tangent. Okay, so all right, so you know what, we've talked a bunch about this. Now let's open the floor. We're not going to get in the nitty gritty of like the story details of volume 2 and 3 and 4. I think I mean, really, again, like all of those existed essentially just to expand the idea of Accel World, right? To expand the idea that Accel World doesn't just read your brain, it can actually mess with it. To introduce us to the unlimited neutral field, so that there's this like world map that has all these other places you can go, and other mysteries and everything else to explore. And of course, yes, the incarnate system. Imagination is the key. I'll never get over how corny I thought that was.
It's like I find the system I find the incarnate system like interesting as like an idea, but just the way they pronounce it, like they start out as like imagination is like it's just
It's basically the explanation for everything you can't explain otherwise.
Well, essentially, I mean, this is my slight theory on the incarnate system, how I see it fitting into the whole game. And my idea basically is that if the game can come into your own brain and break you, you can use your own brain to go the other way and break the game a little. That was kind of like that was my take on it. That it's like it goes both ways. If it can hack into my brain, I can also use my brain if I am focused enough to kind of for a moment hack game. That was kind of how I see
well, didn't Kirito do that like in the end of Aincrad when he stabbed Redcliffe?
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of get that impression. I mean, I always just thought it was just a hokey thing that
he was the first incarnate user.
Well, and you know what? But to an extent,
when the world needed him the most, he vanished.
But to an extent, I think that is kind of the idea, is that you do again, right? Like it's like we were saying earlier, there are a lot of things in Sword Art Online that happen that, I mean, obviously Reki Kawahara wrote a lot of Sword Art years before he ever wrote Accel World. He wrote Accel World, like entered in 2008. He started Sword Art back in 2001. So, I mean, you were talking years that a lot of stuff was happening that he wrote Sword Art without Accel World. And so you do see a lot of things in Accel World that crop up that you can see like potentially examples of it back in various elements of Sword Art. And definitely Kawahara is, like you said, he's come on record and said the technology of Alicization he definitely sees as the precursor for the neural linkers and for the kind of things that you're seeing in Accel World.
But for that, I think the technology in Alicization seems a lot more advanced than anything we see in Accel World.
Well, I think he's talking more about the idea of, because of course in Alicization, the whole idea of how you can accelerate time so that the brain experiences time as if it's happening normally.
Yeah, because wasn't Kirito like trapped in that game world for like at the end of it for like 200 years or some shit?
Yeah. But even though it was only like a day or something in our time, or not even.
Yeah, and they had to forget it. Like they had to forget it or something because basically, if they came back, their minds would be changed. Because as a human being, I don't think you can live for like 200 years without going insane.
I think it wasn't 200 years. It was a few years, maybe.
No, it was 200 years. That's what they said. They said it would be. They said by the time they could get that with the acceleration rate that they had set it at, by the time they could get Kirito and Asuna out of there and stop it,
okay. Second
200 years. Yeah, it's like right at the end.
It'd be so basically they would have like the mental age of like 218 or 17 something years.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we do get that impression in Accel World, right? That a lot of the characters, particularly younger characters that are higher level, they act far older because technically they have spent years in the unlimited neutral field that, beyond their actual age. Like that's the impression I get. Whether they
actually, I've got a great story to explain this. So you have a guy, this thing, and he's serving this master who's just ancient. His father served this master. His grandfather served this master. His great grandfather served this master. But here's the thing: is that this master is dying, and this guy doesn't know what to do. Do you want to know who the master is and who the person is?
Go.
It's a dog, it's a dog, and he's watching his owner die.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not.
But basically, what I'm trying to talk about is the perception of time as well. Is a big thing about it.
Well, no, and you're right, and I think that's the idea, is that again, like Alicization, it brings in that whole idea of how can we perceive time, how can we exist, live almost a lifetime, but then have that erased, because that whole idea of memory erasure comes up in Alicization, right? So a lot of those things, like we're seeing things happen in Alicization that Accel World does. So that's kind of what I mean is like Kawahara is basically using a lot of the ideas that he says in Alicization, and he's applying them to the technology of Accel World. And I mean, I'm not saying that they're any more believable one way or the other, but they are, you know.
I mean, like it's believable in the world setting that they set the stuff up. Like I'm like, I mean, this is not a Sword Art Online podcast, but I'd like what would happen if Kirito came back and he still had his memories? Like, how would he change as a person?
Well, they kind of
is what I'm concerned.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of wonder if that's going to play into the whole Unital Ring thing, but that again, like we only said that we were going to spoil Accel World. We didn't say that we were going to spoil the whole Alicization arc.
Okay, but can we talk about the conspiracy theories?
Okay, so here I'll just tell you, like this was my theory about Accel World, and I've yet to see anything that really would prove me wrong. So my thinking was, I was like, okay, so we have someone who is able to hack all of these different systems, someone who is creating situations where people fight, someone who it seems at least has some kind of cursory knowledge of all the stuff that happened before, like sword art and stuff like that. Somebody who seems very interested in finding who's going to be the strongest. My theory was that it's actually Yui from Sword Art Online. It's Kirito and Asuna's AI kid. It created Brain Burst. And that she's looking for someone to basically replace Asuna and Kirito. So that's why she's looking for the strongest. Because I was like, who else has the power to hack all those things and operate it all? An AI.
I mean, AI, Yuri is practically a waste or a side product of a computer game, and at this a game that is more than 20 years old. So, which program that is more than 20 years old would have the capabilities to hack all those current systems?
But she does evolve. They use her to try and hack into systems during Alicization. She does evolve.
I mean, she's literally in like their cell phones throughout the entire series.
Yeah, they add to her. They add to her.
What?
I mean, was she not in Asuna's cell phone even back in like Gun Gale? So like,
yes,
she's not tied just
so that's what I'm saying.
to Sword Art Online anymore.
Kirito transfers her. No, she's not tied to it, but she's still an old AI, 20 years out of date at this point.
They could just give her Windows updates, for fuck's sakes.
Well, I mean, there is definitely this idea that we have, well, even if it's not Yui specifically, I mean, Kirito as...
It might be an AI, but probably not Yui.
Well, I kind of wonder if it's somehow an AI that's tied to Kirito. That's my thinking. It's somehow tied to Kirito or Asuna.
My theory is that, like... My theory is that Kirito is dying, and then Yuri and Alice basically made this game, and so whenever they find the strongest gamer, they're going to like transfer his consciousness into that person.
Creepy. That's a super creepy idea.
Well, actually, if it's like 20, like 40, like it's
the ghost of Yu-Gi-Oh!
It's his AI boyfriend who's doing this. Anyway, there's actually, like, if you look at, like, Kohime's, like, moveset and some of the abilities she does, like, they're very similar to Kirito's, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a character that shows up, like, I think it's, like, volume 12 or 13, who looks very similar to Kirito and has a very similar moveset to Kirito and has some connections with some other characters. I'm just like... Because, like, Kirito, if he was alive, because we're just going to assume, like, the average life expectancy. Kirito is relatively young. He would be probably, like, in his 30s, maybe 40s at this point. Like, unless he died in an accident or got into, like, a gamer accident, like, he should be alive.
I think the whole idea that they come up with, like, I think the reason that I've seen often quoted that a lot of people are like, I don't think any of these people in Accel World are directly related to the characters from Sword Art, is it would mean that those characters in Sword Art became really shitty parents.
My theory is that the character that I'm talking about is actually like the son or daughter of Kirito, or someone who knows him, because he uses a sword style that's very similar to Kirito. And he also taught. I think he's the one who taught Kotohime some of those abilities.
He's just a fanboy.
So, as far as I know, by volume 25, they still haven't killed any of the kings. So, I don't think we're going to see an end to this series anytime soon.
Probably not.
Probably not. I don't think any of the characters from Sword Art Online is the creator of Accel World, but if it is anyone, my bet would be of some kind of ghost of Kayaba.
Oh, fucking Kayaba. That guy keeps coming back.
Well, technically, he isn't actually dead.
If anyone is going to create a game world for people fighting against each other, who would it be? Kayaba.
Well, I got to admit, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And we already know.
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure they hinted, like, in the show itself that Kayaba is still alive, but is like a data entity, because, like, they created Alice from nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we know that he shows up at a certain point in a form. Like, I mean, this is again, this is where I kind of think, I kind of think that Kawahara is going to change gears and somehow tie these series together, because I think he is going to have to come to a point where he decides to end this thing, and you know, the best way to end it, I think, honestly, is somehow revealing that there's a tie into Sword Art. And I kind of wonder because Alicization ends. He finished Alicization back in 2010, and the print edition of it only came out like about 3 or 4 years ago, finished. So now he has started this new arc in Sword Art, Unital Ring. It's the first new Sword Art he's written other than Progressive in 10 years. Now, I kind of wonder, and this is just me wondering, I kind of wonder if Unital Ring, the reason he's picking up Sword Art again and writing this, I kind of wonder if Unital Ring and the end of Accel World are going to meet. And you're kind of going to end up having to have read both series to get the full sort of story and conclusion.
Context.
That's what I wonder. I don't know if he will go that way. I have not read anything that suggests he's doing it. But
there's definitely hints. Like, I think, like, I know that Flies is muted me, so you can tell him. But, like, there are hints of, like, symbols and stuff like that, and little, like, Easter eggs between both series.
Oh yeah.
So they have to be connected.
So yeah, I kind of think that Unital Ring is going to connect to Accel World, and that Accel World's end will make more sense if you've read all of Sword Art Online. That's my gut feeling. But again, like, let's face it, I mean, Kawahara seems to have a hard time committing to ending a series. Like, Sword Art Online was supposedly done with Alicization. He didn't write anything new for near a decade, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm going to write something new. Accel World, he's 25 volumes in, and he hasn't killed a single king. The Isolator, he keeps putting out a book every once in a blue moon, doesn't seem to be really getting anywhere with getting that series to an end. Sword Art Online Progressive.
Yeah, I'm like up to date. It doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. Like, this is like it's almost like we're in the beginning parts of
Sword
it.
Art Online Progressive, same thing. He's going to cover 25 floors. He's already 7 books in, and he's only on like the 6th floor or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? I just
he has to cover a lot more than 25 floors.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think like, that's what Flies was saying earlier, is that the rumor is that it's going to end around the 25th floor, and that at that point,
why at the 25th? Because that's just halfway to the end.
Because
well,
the
yeah, but
idea
that's the
was
point.
that in the original Aincrad, Kirito and Asuna don't team up until the murder mystery investigation that was in the side story, which was on, I think, around floor 50-ish. And it's implied that in Progressive is kind of like retconned into the main timeline, and that Asuna and Kirito were paired up until around floor 25, and then something happens. We don't know yet because we're obviously not there yet, but something happens, and that's the point in the story where they split off from each other, and that's when Kirito goes on his own and then joins the Black Cats, and then Asuna joins the Knights of the Round Blood, and then they... apparently what they say is going to happen so that it's not inconsistent with the relationship in the main series, is that because of what happened in the Round Bloods or whatever, not the Round Bloods, the Black Cats. That's when Kirito was like, I'm never joining a guild or whatever, because he doesn't want to get everyone killed anymore. And Asuna notices this change in him when they meet up at floor boss meetings all the time, and she feels like guilty about it because she left him first, I guess, and that's why their relationship is kind of shaky until eventually they start interacting more. I don't know. That's what I was told.
We're getting way off topic again from Accel World.
Well, I know, but we're just saying, like, I think Kawahara has an issue with trying to end series, and this is why I kind of wonder, like, Accel World has been going on, so he's been writing Accel World since 2008. It's been ongoing. It's not one that it was like he wrote all the web novels, like Sword Art.
That's more or less the reason why I decided not to follow this series any longer, because 25 volumes not going anywhere. I have enough.
Well, I mean, I get that a lot. I like a lot of stuff, quote unquote, happens, but I get but that's why I kind of wonder, other than, of course, the big bucks of coming back and writing a new Sword Art arc, because let's face it, like, big mucho dineros for writing a new Sword Art arc.
Yeah, like Sword Art, like as much shit as we give Sword Art Online, like it sells like gangbusters.
Like, I think when Unital Ring came out, the first volume of it, that was volume 21, and I'm pretty sure in its first week alone, it sold like 250,000 copies or something. Like, it's ridiculous.
Jesus.
And like, yeah, and of course, then that's just the book sales, right? That's not the anime deal, the merchandising, because of course everyone's going to have new outfits in Unital Ring, so we got to have all new merchandise and everything else. Like, I mean, my God, like the
wallpapers, official art, video games.
the money is just so. I mean, okay, so if we're not going to be, those people that are just like, he did it for the cash, what other reason does he really have to write a new arc of Sword Art other than
maybe okay, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's not running it for money, it could be they just got new inspiration.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Either A, there was an idea that he had that just he had absolutely had no choice to write it, or B, he had a great idea that he thought to himself, "Hey, this I could then finally kickstart Accel World towards an end, because I've already gotten all these ties between these two series." So I don't know. Again, to me, it would be really cool if he just eventually just said, "You know what, you guys were right. They're two are connected. I just was blowing smoke up your butt." That's my feeling. I don't think I'm really unique in that sense, but yeah, I mean, Accel World, like, I still thought Accel World overall was a better series than Sword Art. Now, obviously, I've only read the first 12 volumes. It's not like I've read all of them.
For me, I think it's slightly better because it avoids some of the more obvious pitfalls of Reki Kawahara's writing. Rapist villain. Kirito, we need you to save us.
Yeah.
Jesus Kun.
Yeah.
It definitely has less of the problems than. Like, it still has issues. Like, I don't think it's, like, amazing. But, like, for Reki Kawahara, it works. It's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, I thought the characters had a bit more depth. I thought that the characters had more development to them. Obviously, Haru is a good player, but he still gets his ass kicked. It's not like he always wins. It's not like he's, Immortal Kun or anything like that. That is kind of the reason why I thought Accel World was a little bit of a better series than Sword Art. But again, I've only read half of it, so I can't say that it stays that way. Raj, you're probably not wrong. After 25 volumes, like, what the F? Let's get going here.
I'm not sure I would say either of them is better than the other. Sword Art Online has highs and lows. It has volumes that are good. It has volumes that are very bad. And so Accel World is more, for at least the first 4 volumes, what I've read so far, it's more even.
Yes, that I would say.
And I agree that Accel World has the better characters, except for Takumo in the first volume. And,
fair enough.
And mostly other antagonists as well, because Kawahara cannot write antagonists well. Whether or not they're rapists, but
it's nice that they're not, though. Let's be honest.
What I prefer in Sword Art Online is that the individual volumes have better payoff.
I see what you're saying.
You get really have story arcs that conclude, that have satisfying endings, and then
right.
That's something that I'm missing from Accel World. And from what I've read for further volumes, I've skipped a bit ahead for some summaries. That isn't going to change much.
No, Accel World is definitely.
It
you're
seems
right.
to be more meet new character, fight a bit, and then skip to next volume.
Yeah, like Sword Art, definitely you're right. Very much more arcs. Accel World is kind of like one of those books where it's like we introduce a big problem and then we're going to spend 4 volumes dicking around trying to figure things out, meeting new enemies, everything else. And then after 5 volumes, we'll deal with that big problem, but an even bigger problem will happen. So now we're going to spend another 5 volumes dicking around, doing other stuff, not really dealing with that big problem. Oh, now we got to figure out that big problem. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yep.
And you're not wrong.
So it's both series have their pros and cons, and I'm not really sure I know I could decide which is better overall.
I think I like, you know what, I think what you said about Accel World being a bit more consistent is probably along the lines of why I say I think I thought Accel World was a little bit better. Plus, like I said, I thought the characters overall were more interesting. Like there was, I mean, yes, there's certainly some flaws with them, but I would say I was more interested in more characters in Accel World than I was in Sword Art Online. In Sword Art Online, I could, most of the characters I could take or leave. There was just a small number of them that I was like, I'm actually kind of invested in what happens to you as a character.
Yeah, but there are volumes that focus on these characters, like Gun Gale Online was. Yes. I think Gun Gale Online was one of my favorite arcs. Mother's Rosario was my favorite arc.
Okay. I totally agree with Gun Gale because, best girl Shinon is in it. That's my hill that I die on.
It also had quite a good twist at the end, good explanation, something you could have figured out on your own if you thought long enough.
That's true.
But
what twist?
Well, he's talking about like how they were carrying out the murders, that it wasn't like there was actually that it wasn't just like a magic gun or
that's
some
a twist. I thought that was obvious. I don't know. Wait,
well, okay, this isn't the Gun Gale Online podcast. We keep going off on Sword Art, but
yeah, sorry.
No, I know, but I know what you're saying though, Mirage. You're right. Like, there are definitely more immediate payoffs in Sword Art because there are smaller arcs, whereas because Accel World is trying to tell this one big story about this one group of people, it just keeps going on, and there are, and I'll admit it, even after up to the 12th volume, there were certain points where I was like, can we just beat that effing guy and move on?
I mean, I thought Kodahime wanted to win. Why is she like why isn't she like fucking killing more of these guys and feeding on their life force to gain strength?
Well, and I think that's the kind of the thing that a lot of people have complained about with Accel World. They're kind of like, you made such a big deal in the first book about taking out these kings, and then all you've done since then is like, hang out with a couple of them, like just like
I get like buying your time and gathering your strength, because obviously like she isn't like at full power like she was back in the good old days, so I get that. But like, when are you going to go on the fucking attack? Like, when are you going to go like a fucking rip their hearts out and go like like instruments of destruction?
Yeah, well, and yeah, I think that's
my guess is they have to wait until Haru is also level 9.
That would not be a bad guess. Because she would want to take him with her.
What level is he? That, as far as you've read,
According to the wiki, he is level 6. I'm not sure what volume that's talking about.
I think that's what I think. More recently, that's what he is, because he's not that. He's only like what, level 4 in these first 4 books.
Yeah.
And like to get from 4 to 5 and 5 to 6 is like crazy. Apparently, like every level becomes ridiculously harder to get up to the next level.
well, I'll see you guys in volume 50 then.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope not. Like, yeah, no, let's not do that.
Tell that to Reki Kawahara.
Yeah, like I admit, I am much more. I am intrigued in trying to get caught up on Accel World and on Sword Art, so that because I really do want to see where the whole Unital Ring thing goes. But yeah, that's a challenge, because that's like over 20 books that I got to get through to get caught up.
Well, let's say if the story picks up in soon-ish, then maybe I will pick up the series again. But right now, no thanks.
Oh man. All right. Well, I think we've probably talked about Accel World to death at this point, and just Reki Kawahara in general. So I think we'll wrap it up there. I don't think we really even talked about what we were going to do next, so I guess it'll be a surprise.
Can we do Spider?
Oh, so I'm a spider. So what? Oh, we'll
Good
Yes.
idea.
I'm sure we could do that at some point shortly. I don't know about next,
Yay.
but we should talk about that. There is the anime coming out, so we should probably talk about that at some point.
Yeah, there are plenty of
You're
light
wholesome spider
novel
person.
anime coming out in
Oh.
winter.
You don't have to
No
remind
kidding.
me. I have plenty of stuff I'm gonna have to read that season.
You're trying to get caught up. Even this fall season, there's quite a good number of them.
I mean, speaking of light novel like anime, I've been really enjoying the Misfit of Demon Academy. Like, it's the best comedy this season.
Yes.
You know what? I must admit, I have enjoyed it too. This last little bit hasn't been as strong as the first, like 2/3 of it, but still, yeah.
It is so entertaining.
Oh yeah, it's super entertaining. Like, there is something about that. Is the one thing that you get a little tired sometimes of the OP main character, but an OP main character who totally knows he's OP and like owns it. And let's face it, he is.
Well, at least he's more honest about it. Like, he's like, yeah, I'm basically like a god.
Yeah.
And there's very few beings that are at my level.
And like the fact that he is just such a sadistic bastard. Like, how many times do I have to kill you before you admit that I'm better than you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, kill you, raise you back to life. Kill you, raise you back to life.
It just
kill
feels
you.
weird because it seems
man.
like the perfect series that would definitely
Okay.
get translated in English. The manga is, but not the novels.
Maybe we'll see that
That's
later.
a shame.
All right. So next episode will be a surprise, because I don't know what we're going to do. So we'll talk about it.
It's like a box of chocolates. You'll never know what you're going to get.
That's right. There you go.
Or you
All
can get a
right.
box of life grenades.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this one. And we'll see you eventually in the next one. And to you...
Now get out.
And to you, dear listeners, thank you so much for hanging in there with us. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now. For show notes and related links, visit lightnovelpodcast.com.